Only 4 lights.
Well, we've got the green light because we're live, we're making it happen here on Kicking the Seat. It is Wednesday, which means it is time for a live roundtable review of a big blockbuster movie. And we've got the biggest blockbuster movie for, no, that's not even true because Lilo and Stitch wiped the floor with this and everything else. But we are here to talk about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
I thought we were talking about Lilo and Stitch today. Oh man.
We could. It's a movie I haven't seen, but I'm all for it because I don't know that I have much to say about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Immediately the Mad Magazine parody, Mission Impossible Dud Reckoning comes to mind. Now, I'm putting my cards out there. I did not like this movie. I am a fan in general of the Mission Impossible franchise. And I did like Dead Reckoning, the kind of the first part of this. And knowing where we ended up, I feel like if they had just filmed 5 extra minutes at the end of Dead Reckoning and slapped that on there, that would have been a worthy send-off to the franchise. But, that's just me. Oh, hold on a second. Speaking of worthy, wait, can I do it? Can I scroll down? Yes, I can. And I can add Mike Crowley, if you'll probably agree.
I decided to accept the mission at the last minute.
And I see you're rocking the Henry Cavill stash from a couple films ago.
Yeah. Good luck CGIing that out.
I was going to say you look a little bit like a Pringles can, Mike.
Oh, that's pretty good.
With the hair part in the middle. Are you like a period piece from the 1880s or something?
Oh, great.
It's a good look, Mike. It's very...
Someone's got to class up the joint.
That's right.
But all right, so I think this is our assembled team of cinematic super spies. I love my alliteration. We're going to talk about this movie. Now, I was reminded in preparing for this show that I have... It was... what was it? Fallout. Mission Impossible Fallout was the last movie in the franchise that I despised. And I don't have proof of that except for my own memory and possibly, David, your memory. Do you remember that we did a podcast about this back in the good old audio only days and my computer ate it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I remember that. Yeah.
That was one for the ages.
That's, if you choose this message will self-destruct.
It did. I think the internet could not handle my negativity towards that movie.
You chose not to accept it.
I still don't. But
why is that, may I ask?
It's funny because I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about for very similar reasons to why I didn't care for The Final Reckoning. And a lot of it is in regards to Fallout is my own fault because that was 2018. I think Rogue Nation was 2015. Mm-hmm. And so there were 3 years between films. Now, Fallout is a direct sequel to Rogue Nation. And as these films go along, the continuity kind of picks up as a snowball. So you really do have to pay attention to what happened in the previous movies. But because I watch a lot of films, and these movies tend to be particularly long, I did not go back and rewatch Rogue Nation in preparation for Fallout. So I did not literally understand most of what was going on in that movie because of references to plot points and characters and vengeance and stuff that was going on. And I just found it all to be a bit dreary. I almost wanted to pull over in the middle of the screen and be like, wait, stop the projector. I have to go watch the previous movie. And, it kind of bugged me, I think, more than anything else, because to a certain degree, other films in the franchise leading up to that had been accessible if you weren't familiar with the other entries. There might be a reference here or there, but this was where it really began tying everything together. And I generally appreciate that, but a little heads up would be nice, especially when you've got a gap of 3 years between films. It's not like Marvel where you've got some piece of content continuity like every 6 months leading into the next thing. But again, it's personal bias. I don't know that it's fair. I haven't been inspired to go back and watch the rest of the rest of the franchise to catch up and see, oh, maybe I was unfair to this, but it stands. And with The Final Reckoning, we had a movie only a couple of years ago, back just before the Barbenheimer craze, to tell this story, and this is the end of it. And for a series that's based on fun and kind of, globe-trotting espionage and action, I found this conclusion to be 3 hours of mostly talking about mostly stuff that in the end didn't matter, but punctuated by one truly spectacular aerial fight scene, which we'll get to. So I'm filibustering, I'm soapboxing, but hey, it's my show. No, it's our show. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Earth's Mightiest Critics, because that's who we are. We have David Fowley of Keeping It Real. Sorry, I got you mid-drink there, pal. Mark, the Movie Man Krawcheck of Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room Podcast. Jeff York of the EstablishingShot.org. I almost said .org. Like the Swedish chef over here. And Pipeline Artists. And Mike Crowley of You'll Probably Agree, aka YPA Reviews. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us, for hanging out.
Thank you.
I want to find out what wavelength we're on here. Mike, I know that you were kind of high on this movie, but maybe your opinion changed a bit after you had a couple hours to soak. Is that true?
Yeah, because the Mission Impossible movies give you like this really big rush of adrenaline, and you feel like really high coming off of it. But then once it wears down, you kind of look back at the movie, and I remember like we talked after the film, and I'm like, yeah, he was kind of right about that. And then the more I thought about it, I went, yeah, it's a little weird, because the movie it's fun, whatever, but it's way too long. A lot of the action sequences, like the one you pointed out to me when he's underwater and he's trying to turn the key into the thing that contains the entity AI. Like that sequence went on for so long, I forgot if he even accomplished his mission because it was so disorienting. And then on top of that, like the movie just has like blatant weird fan service where like and the spoilers banners are already on here, but like one of the main cameos is like the guy in the CIA or FBI or whatever it was, like in the first film when he's hanging down by the ropes from the vent. Like the guy who like gets his coffee comes back, and it's like a huge deal that he comes back. I remember seeing it in the theater. I heard like two critics like way in the corner cracking up, and I'm like, why are they cracking up? And then when they cut to the flashback of the guy, I went, oh, okay, yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. And there's like way too many ticking clocks in this movie. There's like maybe 3 different sequences where there's like a clock ticking down and they got to defuse the bomb and they got to do it at the last minute. Oh my God. And it happens so much. It's ridiculous. And the problem I had with Final Reckoning is the same one I had with Dead Reckoning, which is there's a lot of scenes where we have characters talking about the AI and what it's going to do and how to stop it. And it's spending less time developing the characters. Like one reason I like Mission Impossible 3 is because there's like an immediate threat. You have Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's threatening Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt's either wife or girlfriend in the movie. It's been a lot of years. I can't remember. But like that brought like an immediate personal threat and why he can't really live a normal life, and he has to be in the Impossible Mission Force. And in this one, they touch on it a little bit, but it's sort of like this character they introduced in the last movie who is kind of just like a last-minute introduction. His name was Gabriel, and he's the whole reason that Ethan got in there. And it just felt kind of messy. And by the end of it, it doesn't really feel like it's going to be the end of the Mission Impossible movies. It feels like as long as Tom Cruise can still run, he's going to do the movies, and if not, they'll hand the baton to somebody else. But yeah, I just kind of left like entertained, but sort of like this is just the same sort of thing and nothing really that special.
Fair enough. Good assessment there. Mark, jump in here.
I was going to say I was going to wait to see how everybody else felt before I leave.
No.
Make sure your parachute's intact before you share it.
No, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. Don't get me wrong. I fully acknowledge its warts and all, but I was highly entertained. I felt I got my money's worth out of it. I will admit that it did go long. That was one of my only critiques, is that it went too long, and the plot armor for our hero was beyond normal plot armor. But at this point, where we've had the Kremlin blow up and we've had other things to where Ethan Hunt needs someone to trust him one more time, for me, I was there for the action sequences in that, and I appreciate the fact that I enjoyed the cameo of the guy who also was Werner Brandis from Sneakers. I thoroughly enjoyed his appearance. I thought out of all the cameos they could have picked, I appreciate that one because I didn't see it coming, and he was more than a cameo. He actually did play a part in the plot, so it wasn't like, oh, here's just a little fan. It's better than what we had in Rogue One for the first 15 minutes, which was completely fan service, including how did the walrus guy get from this planet to Tatooine in such a short time.
Yeah, that's important stuff.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is it wasn't just he served a purpose more than just, hey, look at this surprise cameo. He actually had purpose to the plot near the end, and he's he actually played a part in saving things, and so I enjoyed that as well. Was it too long? Absolutely. Believability is out the window, but at this point with this series, its believability was out the window a long time ago. So for me overall, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I still will say that Rogue Nation is probably the best one, the fourth one out of all of these, because my son and I did binge watch 1 through 6, and after the weekend before this came out, we binge watched them all over the weekend, and watching them back to back, you get perspective of how it kind of takes kind of the course that the Fast and Furious franchise does.
I was just going to mention that, yeah.
In that the first 3 are completely different films than the next, ones after it. And they lean into what a lot of people enjoyed from the first 3, but they didn't quite add too much more after Rogue Nation. And so I'll fully admit it, but for me, I was entertained. I didn't have any bar or expectation whatsoever. And the ending sequence of this was pretty phenomenal, especially on the big screen with, of all things, biplanes. So, for me, by the end of it, though, I would have liked the ending to be different. Not as many 1,000-yard stares at one another, we didn't need that. They could have ended it sooner. It was starting to feel like Lord of the Rings, but long story short, too late. I enjoyed it overall, but I fully admit how weak the story was, but I wasn't really there for that. I was there for the action and such, and if it had been shorter, I probably would have enjoyed it even more.
Let me just mention something, Mark. We talked about Metropolis on your show the other night, and you mentioned biplanes. I want someone to do a fan edit where they incorporate a little Tom Cruise on one of the biplanes that kind of
that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
it'd be awesome.
King Kong for that matter,
or King Kong. Yeah.
Oh, both. Why not? It would be a Ready Player One situation. Jeff, jump in here. What did you make of? We were sitting together at the.
I was going to say we watched this one practically holding hands, or I'm dare say, giving you my shoulder for when you were falling asleep. But
which did happen. We'll talk about that.
I don't disagree really with anything that's said. I will say it is not a cameo. A cameo is basically a less than minute kind of appearance for fan service. To your point, Mike, but that character from the first movie is on screen for a good portion of the film, so he's a supporting character.
Enough. Yeah.
Having said all that, though, not meaning to mansplain or critic-splain or whatever, I think they miscalculated this film on a number of levels. There's too much. There's too much exposition. There's too much reliance on all these things that have to be explained. Nobody cares. It's always the end of the world. It's always a bomb. I went back and watched a couple movies because I went on the record about 2 years ago saying that I think this is actually the best pound for pound franchise in movie history, because there's not a dog in the bunch, and I don't think this one's a dog. I think it's probably the least of them all, but it's still well done. And a lot of it is fun, and it's expertly crafted and acted, and 100 other things that I defy anybody to show me tentpole that's as put together as well as this. Christopher McQuarrie knows what he's doing as a director. The editing, the sense of location and context is very well done. However, having said that, they decided, I think because this was going to be Cruise's last go round, and He carries with him a certain amount of Tomness with him now. He's probably the last movie star that we really have who can open a film, and he's been that way since '83 with Risky Business. And he's getting older. He's probably not been given his due by the Academy or the AFI or hundreds of other people. And they decided to go very somber with this, which all the other movies had somber themes too. End of the world. I mean, my God, they're going to blow up his wife in Fallout as they were going to kill her in 3. So to do this without much humor, with too much exposition, with all this gravitas, it belies the source material. And I'll say this too. And when I talk about humor, I don't just mean the witty asides from Simon Pegg, but it's funny that Simon Pegg's salient point here in this film is that he has a heart attack while he's trying to defuse this bomb with Haley Atwell's Jane character.
Grace.
Grace character. Thank you. But what this is missing is the humor that isn't just quips, which, is nice when you have that, but it's the humor that adds to the fun of the action. And I'll give you an example of it. Going back to the very first movie, it's not enough that they've already broken into Langley and Tom Cruise is hanging by these wires and the temperature can't go over a certain amount. And if he drips sweat on the floor, the sensors are going to go off. And this guy is walking back and forth, heaving into the wastebasket with the poison that he's been given to get him out of the room. And suddenly, all of a sudden, in the shaft, where Jean Reno is holding Cruise with all of his might from these precarious wires, comes a rat. Now, at first you go, holy shit, that's funny. Oh no, what's going to happen? And something happens. Now, that's using humor, this awful sort of, appearance of this beast that would scare most people. How's he going to interfere with it? We already know that this wire is very precarious. And De Palma and the screenwriters and the filmmakers, all of them, deliver, because that's when the most famous image of him dropping and he's like this on the floor, just like from 3 inches above it and potentially exposing the whole thing. It's halfway through the film. But that's hilarious. It's also thrilling. There's not a scene in this movie that is equal parts that. There was in Fallout. There is in all the other movies, even the last one, Dead Reckoning. I mean, one of the greatest stunts they've done, and we probably almost dismiss it because there's so many of these in these films, but where they're literally beating one train car after another to save themselves, and meanwhile they're completely trashing the Orient Express, is both thrilling, scary, and frickin' hilarious.
And it was a great bit of marketing misdirection because the entire focus of that
didn't even know that was coming.
Was the bike ramping up and going over the chasm with the parachute.
Right.
They completely hid that train sequence.
That's right,
which was great.
And I would argue the same thing even in Fallout with the great helicopter chase, where you saw Henry Cavill's sort of double agent getting more and more upset and sort of rolling his eyes at the risks that Ethan Hunt was taking that was endangering them. So I don't know why they decided to forego that here. I think it's a major misstep. But again, I liked it, but I didn't like it as well as the others. But I agree with the criticisms. They made a number of mistakes, and I think that's the biggest one. I think they just approached this too seriously. I'm going to say one last thing too here before I concede the floor is, I think they also make a mistake, dare I say, with Grace. Sorry, I didn't remember her name. I like Haley Atwell a lot. I liked her a lot in Dead Reckoning. I miss Ilsa. I miss Rebecca Ferguson. And at the end, when they say the last person to show up for sort of their reunion is Grace, no. It should have been Simon Pegg. He's been with them from almost the beginning. He carries more sort of gravitas or experience with him. And it was just in the last episode, the last movie, Dead Reckoning, where Ilsa died. And I think they miscalculated there too. It's almost like they got too close to it, too close to Cruise, too close to the end of it, too close to the new female lead, that they were missing a lot of the forest for the trees.
Yeah. Well, briefly, I mean, that's the thing is Rebecca Ferguson's Ilsa character was, great. She was in what I think 3-4 of these movies.
That's right.
And she's definitely a presence. She was kind of a kick-ass, spy that we first meet as like an assassin with that iconic scene of the rifle and the dress. Haley Atwell, as much as I like her role in these movies is basically the role of the the sidekick heroine in a 1980s action movie.
Yeah, damsel in distress, to put it more bluntly.
I mean, it's
in a way,
she's a little bit more, I guess you might say, empowered than that in this
Yes.
movie, but she doesn't have that presence. And when they're doing the big send off at the end, I had two problems with it. One, she didn't need to be there. To your point, that was Rebecca Ferguson's place. Again, nothing against Haley Atwell, but you don't get to, be like Michael Jordan. My God, I'm dating myself. But like Michael Jordan, scores like 30 points, and then at the end of the game he gets a knee injury, and he got someone to come and score like the 33 points. You're like, yay, that's that guy. No, it was Jordan doing the heavy lifting, right? The other problem is that everybody minus Luther walks out of this picture. They survive. And on top of that whole thing with Luther, with Ving Rhames, I was talking to a friend of mine about this because I remembered parts of Dead Reckoning, but not the entire thing. I'm like, at what point was it established that Luther was fatally sick? It's in this movie.
Yeah,
There's no reference to anything, and they don't even talk about it. Like,
No.
if they walk into this,
It comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, they walk into a room where he's working on, a device that's going to help unlock the key or contain the key or whatever this MacGuffin is, this MacGuffinception we've got going on. And then you pan over like, oh, wait, there's a hospital bed and an IV drip. And next thing you know, he's like on his deathbed. I'm like, where did this come from? When did this happen? Because they established that this is only 2 months, I think, or 4 months at max.
That's right.
After Dead Reckoning. So that was quick. Was he exposed to radiation? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was very
Aggressive
strange.
cancer can happen like that, though. So that wasn't a big deal for me. I'm sorry. I didn't feel that at all. I'm like, it's in a few months. You can feel healthy and suddenly be severely ill with cancer within a few months.
Yeah,
So,
But you owe more to
I
the
get
audience.
that, but you
I think.
do. Yes, exactly, Jeff. You owe more to the audience for that. It needs to be explained or something, because it's almost like you show up in a movie.
Otherwise,
that
it
takes
feels
place
like
2 months later,
manipulate.
and a character's dead, and you're like,
Just
oh
utter
yeah,
manip-
he died. The character that's been with the franchise for almost 30 years just disappeared, and we're not going to really acknowledge it or explain what happened or what the significance is, because I think if they had at least pulled over, let me just rewind the tape a bit. You didn't need it, because he had a heroic death that is, I think, undermined by the fact that, well, I'm going to die anyway. No,
Yeah.
he should have been the guy to stay behind and jump on the grenade. And I think that's what, if they really wanted to go dark with this movie. And one of my big problems with The Final Reckoning is that it is so heavy and so Matrixy, where Tom Cruise is literally turned into Neo. You're the only one who can save humanity. You're the chosen one. You're going to go up against the artificial intelligence entity that's controlling the globe and taking over people's minds. And it's so, self-important that I think if you're going to do that, you really need to go dark and start killing off every member of the team, an inversion of the way the franchise started, where in the beginning of De Palma's Mission Impossible, you introduce the team, you set everybody up, and they go on this mission, and they're all screwed. And Hunt is the only one to walk out of that. And one of the earliest examples of humor in that movie is when he goes to that restaurant and he sits down, he's all disheveled and beaten up, and he's in his rumpled tux, and Kittredge is just sitting there like, this is kind of awkward. It's a weird, funny moment, and it leads to that great line of, "You've never seen me very upset," and the exploding fish tank and all that stuff. Action, darkness, humor, all rolled into one. Where's that in that movie? But I want to know something. Where is David Fowley's opinion of Final Reckoning? 24 minutes in.
There it is.
David, what'd you think?
Well, I was really surprised to see Emilio Estevez back. I did not see that coming, so that was pretty cool.
In that like couple of seconds in the montages, yeah.
What the heck was going on in the first hour of this movie? Really? I mean, come on.
The first hour of this movie felt like montages of the other Mission Impossibles, along with the montage of what was going to happen in this movie.
Previously in all 7 movies.
Yes.
Yeah. It had it was like what Nolan tried to do with Dark Knight Rises, where he like cut the clips of the last movies to telegraph, oh, this is the last one.
And in all these movies, they do what basically each episode of the original TV series did, is in the opening credits, they show scenes of what's to come, right? Well, Those scenes didn't come till like well after an hour. It's like, what is happening? Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with what everybody's saying. So Christopher McQuarrie has directed like 4 of them, the last 4, and Rogue Nation and Fallout have been the best like back-to-back storyline sequels.
Mm-hmm.
And for the last movie to be called Dead Reckoning Part 1, which they've dropped the Part 1, and this is Final Reckoning. Usually with Part 1s and Part 2s in a movie, you should be able to just, once they're out, you should be able to watch them all together, and it's a seamless transition. This one, well, you could take a good 45-minute break at the beginning of this Part 2, at least. I just, it seems like we're gonna do clapping in the hands of Tom Cruise. Look what you've done for the past 30 years, man. You're amazing. And you know, Mission Impossible has always been about a team, not a person. But as these movies have gone on and on, it's become less about that and more about, look at what Tom Cruise could do. This guy's amazing. Is he going to have long hair or shorter hair this time around? How much of his clothes is he going to take off? Oh my gosh, he's in his skivvies and he's 62 years old. This is amazing. And like, I don't know, at this point they should just, it's not Mission Impossible. Each movie, it's always possible. And as these movies have gone, they've become Mission Implausible. When he's taking off Katie O'Brien's super suit, of course, she has that line, "Take care of my suit." You know he's going to trash it. Anyway, when he's taking off that suit underwater and he's like in his skivvies, I'm like, no.
Yeah, he would freeze.
No.
Was that right before the entire that crew shows up around him at that exact point?
Yes.
and dishes him, gets him out of the drink? Yeah,
That's some really good GPS they've got.
But is that even a crew though? That was Haley Atwell in a tank top getting him out of the ice.
Yeah, but they had the other crew. They just didn't show them the first time.
That was before that.
Because they showed us before that.
Yeah. That was the other crew. I actually liked that crew, the submarine crew. I thought that there was a nice addition. Captain Bledsoe, played by Tremel Tillman.
Yeah, very good.
That was cool. You could have cut out, and I love her, but you could have cut out Hannah Waddingham's whole role in this movie. Unfortunately, I like her, but we gotta cut it out, man. Cut it out. And
Dave Coulier joining the podcast, everybody.
Yeah, like all of these, like, you know, the round table talking heads scenes where Nick Offerman's going, let me get this straight. You not even 2 movies ago you did this. And again, I love Offerman. I missed his giggle here because his giggle's the best. But like all those guys, it's just like, and then Kittredge, and all they do is like show clips from the past, like they're planning on viewers having amnesia or dementia. I don't know. I mean, I have to say I did like, if we're gonna do flashbacks and have like honoring like how long this franchise has been going along, I did appreciate the flashbacks to De Palma's movie, and bringing back like kind of like this throwaway character, Donlow, played by Rolf Saxon. That was cool. And even towards the end in the third act, the part where like, you know, Ethan Hunt tells him I think it's in the airplane, he's like, I ruined your life. And he's like, no. And I like that because it's like, look, your life isn't so important that you ruined my life. I had a fine life. I went to the Arctic Circle and I met my honey and we had a great time. And
that was a really nice.
You're ruining my life.
that David, I want to pull over a second. That was a really nice scene. However, it also underscores another one of my frustrations that I kind of alluded to is that in this movie, both what was this guy's name? Donlow?
Yeah.
Okay. He and his wife, they both in separate occasions say that whole thing of like, I'll see you in the next life, or we'll be together again soon, or something. That's the classic, I'm saying this to you because I'm about to go off and sacrifice myself or get shot or whatever. They both do that during this film, and both of them, again, walk out alive. So it's like either just don't bother with that or commit to the bit. It's just, these movies, you're right, they are all about the team, but increasingly, and as in the case of the Fast and the Furious movies, which I haven't seen the last couple, so I'm just kind of spitballing here, they keep expanding the team or expanding the people that they come into contact with and make them kind of honorary members of the crew. You mentioned Hannah Waddington. You mentioned, Nick Offerman, who's not really part of the crew, but he's just more celebrity cameo-ness. This whole idea of like, impossible. I want to get in on the last movie in this franchise. I'll sweep up the set just to be in a Tom Cruise movie, kind of a thing. And it is detrimental to the story because it's very self-consciously about who's in the movie, not what are they doing in the movie as characters.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you talk about Rebecca Ferguson, the difference between her and Haley Atwell, I like them both, but at least we got to spend more time getting to know Rebecca Ferguson's Ilsa Faust. Why am I saying Ilsa Faust? We don't even know Grace's last name. It's just Grace.
Sorry, and I think I froze.
And in the last movie, we are introduced to Grace. Am I still frozen? What?
Not according to my viewing.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. I can't see anyone else.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
The entity.
I can't tell if it's my internet or someone else's.
It's that AI from the Final Reckoning screwing with us again.
Is everyone else frozen for you, Jeff?
No one else is frozen, including you. I can see you perfectly.
Yeah. You're not frozen either, Ian. Nobody's frozen.
Well, David, you blipped out. I missed the last 3 minutes of what you were talking about because, sorry.
I just heard that from my wife, but
wow.
I mean, the difference between when we talk about supporting characters, Rebecca Ferguson's Ilsa Faust and Haley Atwell, we got to spend a lot more time, 2.5 movies with Ilsa, getting to know her. And then with Haley Atwell, we only know her as Grace. She has no last name, apparently. And all she is really just a good thief, apparently, just because she's a good pickpocket and grabs things quickly. Great. But, I know it was kind of sort of explained within the last...
This is awkward.
Okay.
Hey,
by the way, for what it's worth, Ian, I can see you moving perfectly. Everybody's moving just fine from my viewpoint. I'm sorry. I don't know how it's going now.
Maybe it's only when I'm talking.
No, that's the weird thing, David. It is when you're talking, because the moment I said, hey, can you repeat that? And you started talking about I lost my connection again. It's all on my end. So, please, if if I start to look really confused, don't take it personally. It's not what you're saying. It's just my internet connection.
Maybe you're just reflecting on the plot of Final Reckoning.
There was one. No.
If I can build on some of what David and everybody else is saying, and again, I think it's important to just sort of underline the fact that this is well done, though I think it is the script and the story that is where I think we're let down to all the reasons that people have talked about. But it's interesting, too, because one of the things that I think, if you think back to the other films, is they had better foils. And I think you need a good villain in every movie. I never understand why the Hollywood folks can't remember this, whether making James Bond or whatever, like Bourne Identity did it good with David Strathairn. He was a terrific villain in the last one. Chris Cooper was a great villain in the first one. Here, you don't really have a good villain. You have Gabriel, played by S.A. Morales, who is okay in Dead Reckoning, But if he was okay in Dead Reckoning, he's given almost nothing to do here. He's in the first sort of action scene where he steals the key, and then he's gone until the climax. And when he shows up, he's not scary at all. He's not really even interesting. And nothing against Mr. Morales. He's very capable of playing a well-written villain, as he did in Ozark. And he was terrifying in that. And he underplayed it brilliantly. Here, he's doing the same underplaying, but he doesn't have a character to play. And one of the things I will defend Fallout, because I like it a lot better than you do, Ian, but I remembered a little bit of what went on before it. I might have even watched it before going into the theater, is they made a terrific move that you weren't quite sure of at the beginning, and it kept going back and forth, by putting Superman in as the villain. He's a major star. He's playing a big character. He's the second lead in that movie. And he's there as the foil to Ethan the entire time through every action thing they're doing. And then when he's revealed to be truly the bad guy, after we're going back and forth, is he, isn't he, isn't he? And then he is, and he's still formidable. That is like, there is the template, Mr. McQuarrie. I don't know what you're writing in these last two, but S.A. Morales doesn't even figure really in the last part of Dead Reckoning. He disappears. It's Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell against the falling train cars, which is great. But a bad guy, you need something other than this omnipotent AI that doesn't mean anything. It isn't a visible character that has anything. Now, if you wanted to turn the AI into something, and forgive me for mixing metaphors here, go back to Star Trek in the Changeling episode of the original series, where this computer comes on that is able to read all the systems, make all these decisions, and sterilize imperfection. And then Kirk reveals that he has the wrong connotation of who Kirk the creator is. It isn't him, the captain, and Kirk defeats it. But it's a physical being. If you remember, Nomad is this computer that floats with a shell to itself. I don't know what they're thinking in here by having AI be some sort of thing that bounces off satellites, and S.A. Morales disappears for the middle 2 hours of the film. That's unheard of. And I don't know why these people who have made billions of dollars on this franchise and done it right so many times would so ridiculously forget that here. It's almost asinine. Like, excuse me, are you high on your own supply? Do you think Cruise is enough to make the whole movie? And to your point, David, if they had killed off everybody, how that would have been different. Or you were saying that too, Ian. I guess you started it. Is like, yeah, if only Ethan Hunt is left, and then he sacrifices himself to save the world, that would have been something. But you're right. Nobody really gets hurt except for Luther. And, he was already going to go out because of this illness. It just is anybody saying, hey, you know what? This is what worked before. The humor, the characters, the investment in the time, a strong villain, a visible villain, and but you spend 20 minutes underwater watching Cruise. Well, he's going to, because you've got to get to the poster. The poster is the biplane. So why are we spending 20 goddamn minutes underwater when we know he's going to get it? Do it in 10.
And that's the that's the bit where, I kind of joked about it earlier, Jeff, but it's true. I started nodding off during that submarine sequence. And it was a weird thing because I couldn't tell if I was actually waking up or if I was caught in a dream loop, because he goes down into the submarine to retrieve this key. I was kind of like watching it and getting bored. And it's just that thing where you kind of nod off, but you don't realize you're falling into sleep. You just kind of like, oh, wait. Okay, I guess I was asleep. And then you focus again and start watching. And then it happened again and again. But every time I woke up, it was like the scene was on a loop. He was just going into a different chamber. At least that's what I assume. I don't know if that sequence was 20 minutes long or 2 minutes long. It was interminable because I was using my dream logic just to navigate through it. And that's why I think it's a testament to that climactic aerial fight scene, because after that I was like, oh God, now we got to wait to get to the airplane scene. And what can you do with an airplane? But they did a lot. I was very impressed.
The funny thing is, that last airplane scene that's really climactic, I felt kind of underwhelmed. The pacing felt a little off because he's taking so long to climb to the other plane. I'm just watching him climb and climb, and I'm like, let's just get there. And I'm sure everyone's like, oh my God, it's Tom Cruise and he's way up in the air. But at this point, it's kind of like, yeah, but I'm just used to seeing Tom Cruise do this stuff like all the time, and it doesn't really bring me into the movie. And to Jeff's point, yeah, we don't really have like a clear physical antagonist. You know, we have Gabriel, who's just kind of like a mustache twirling bad guy, where he's like, oh, you're gonna run away with the entity? Not before I get on this plane. And then he outsmarts him, and it's just dull.
I like how he says, don't worry, I have 2 planes.
Yeah.
And they're different colors, so the audience could figure out which is
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and
I think
to Mike's point, just forgive me for saying, I'll let somebody else talk in a second, but to Mike's very point, and what you're saying too, Ian, is one of the reasons those scenes play as a little bit ho-hum is I don't think they do anything in the biplane that they already didn't do in the helicopter chase that they did in Fallout. We've seen Tom Cruise near drowning in a water cavern before, I think in the 5th one, maybe. I forget which one it was. Rogue Nation, yeah. And, you know, they needed to find something that was a little bit different. And it feels familiar. But I think, you know, in some respects, you almost think if they were going to go dark, if they were going to go big ending, they then consciously had to try to do stuff that was a little bit different. Make it more of a team, or have the team get killed off and Tom Cruise is left alone, kind of like he was in the first one through most of it, until he brings in the rogue agents. And even they're kind of a smaller group when they don't have all the resources they need. You know, do something that is smaller, that's more contained, rather than having him hang off a plane. We know he can do that well, and he's done it many times, and bravo for him at 62 doing all of his own stunts. But do something that requires his brain. Do something that requires him to dress up and pretend to be something, have a mind game, win a chess game. Not literally a chess game, but that's what also happened in Mission Impossible, the TV series, is for every time they would do something that had a little bit of physicality to it, which was usually only handled by the Peter Lupus character. He was the muscle and the action in it. Most of it was cerebral. And they would con somebody by getting their confidence, pretending to be a rogue dictator or the cousin of somebody who was going to change the outcome for this, thief or something like that. Where is that? Again, it's kind of the same complaint we've talked about many times in these shows. Like, Batman's supposed to be Sherlock Holmes combined with a ninja. I've never seen Sherlock Holmes in any of the Batman movies except for the animated series, because Batman is a thug. He beats and chops and slams every ball around a little bit in maybe the last one that Matt Reeves did, but not enough where you go like, wow, that's something only Sherlock Holmes would come up with. I could have deciphered that riddle from the greeting card. I want a riddle that I could decipher. That's what Sherlock Holmes does. You know, you go, holy crap, how do you figure that out? Where is the espionage part of these things? Just like in the Bond films, he's never a spy anymore. Everybody knows who James Bond is. He just becomes a hitman, and they, again, I think, are high on their own supply. Oh, this is we've got to top the last thing. Tom Cruise, we'll have him hang off a biplane. It's not even a modern machine.
Well, but here's the thing. Like, I think I really dug the biplane sequence. Not even because it was Tom Cruise doing it. I just thought it was really exciting and kind of funny. Like when he jumps into the cockpit, he thinks he's got control of the plane, but he's actually in the co-pilot seat. Yes. He's got to climb, got to switch spots. I think one of the reasons that sequence is kind of weird that you were kind of picking up on, Mike, is that they keep cutting back between that and then what's going on in that cavern where they're trying to, again, do the thing with the key for the containment unit for the entity, which, whatever. This movie is
another ticking bomb. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But the thing is, with this entity, they talk about how dangerous it is and how it would destroy the internet and everything would have to start over again. Well, us Luddites might not think that's such a bad idea, although I would want to be in a cave in the mountains when that happened, at least for the first few years because of the fallout. But no, the whole thing with Isai Morales that they set up in Dead Reckoning is kind of the Rebecca said furnishing. I almost said furnishing. Rebecca Ferguson. It's almost a similar situation where they kill her off and try and swap her in with Haley Atwell at the last minute. in Dead Reckoning, they introduced Esai Morales as the guy who had a problem with Ethan Hunt like 35 years ago that led him to being in Mission Impossible. That's not been brought up in any of the movies so far. I'm like, no, you can't introduce him as the big guy with history in the two-part that's ending the series, unless you're really going to do something with them, because that's, again, to something you're picking up on, Jeff. It's the cardinal sin of you set him up, he gets away at the end of the part one, so he better come back with a vengeance and be a real presence in the sequel, and he's just not there at all. This movie, the villain in this movie is the ticking clock. It is the missions, the little side games, the side quests, rather than the overarching kind of unifying threat. You know, I'm going to put this out here. I don't know how this would work, but what if, you know, the last several of these movies, of course, you've got the government agent that's kind of the agency that's kind of going after Hunt and his team because they've been framed or set up, or they've done all these like international incidents. They're kind of a threat and they're unstable. No one quite knows if you can trust them, even though everyone knows that you really can. What if Ethan Hunt really did go rogue? What if the entity, which the whole selling point is it can manipulate people and make them believe anything. It can draw up like CGI images, like the new like VO3 from Google, which came out last week. That's like frightening in terms of its implications for art and movies, frankly. If you haven't watched that, check out some of those demo videos. What if it was so good that it could work on Ethan Hunt and make him turn against his team and they have to bring him down? What if the world's smartest, most capable, heroic spy is the person that you have to bring down? Now, that might require a couple movies to tell, but even if it's just for a few minutes, like they did in one of those Superman movies where they turned Henry Cavill dark for 10 minutes.
The second Indiana Jones, where he was a bad guy for about 20 minutes.
There you go. Yeah, Temple of Doom, this thing. Darn it. But yeah, there's all these possibilities. And I think the first red flag I had, even though I was looking forward to this movie because I like Dead Reckoning a lot, was the poster. You know, you've got the biplane poster, but the main one they've been showing is just this black and white picture of Tom Cruise looking wistfully off into the distance. He's got some like blood or burn marks on his face. I'm like, what is this?
Apparently that was fan art. Apparently like one of Tom Cruise's big fans online did a bunch of paintings around the time that like Maverick came out, and Tom Cruise loved it so much he commissioned him to do other, you know, posters and said, hey, do a one for Final Reckoning. So
you know, he could keep that in his house. I don't necessarily want to pass by it when I go to the AMC, you know what I'm saying?
And plus putting the biplane end sequence on the poster just spoils like the whole end sequence for everyone. It's the same thing they did with Captain America Brave New World, where they put Red Hulk on everything, and the same thing they did with Dead Reckoning, where they showed him jumping off the motorcycle onto the train. Like, stop ruining the movie for people who want to enjoy the film. Like, let us be surprised when it happens.
hey,
Mark, it's like that article you shared in the feed about how movies today are so on the nose, from marketing to storytelling, that they're over explaining it for people who don't really know how to watch a narrative because they can't or don't seem to want to infer anything for themselves or on their own.
Well, that's because too many people don't have the discipline and the wherewithal to actually sit down and watch a movie for 2.5 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, because they're so used to watching a teaser trailer that says, and now the trailer for blah, or there's too busy doom scrolling, which only requires, 3 seconds of whatever. And they're used to like TikTok timing, and they can't commit to, an actual movie. I saw, I don't know, one of the movies that I saw this weekend I think it might have been Lilo and Stitch, where I was out in the back kind of near the back row. Somebody was in front, literally scrolling on all brightness throughout the whole dang thing. It's like nobody can, I think
Concentrate.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about an action movie? Someone should have come and slapped it out of their hand. I mean, that's egregious. Mark, sorry, Mike, real quick. I want to say something. Mark, yeah, again, we talked about Metropolis on your show, and for reasons that folks will have to go and watch the this week's spoiler room to find out. I'm not the biggest fan of Metropolis outside of all the technical and performance achievements. I think the story is not that good, but that movie is 20 minutes shorter, I think, than Final Reckoning. And it's a silent film from almost 100 years ago, and it moves and does so much more than this modern blockbuster. That's an indictment and a half, I think. I don't know how that happens.
Well, I mean, you guys brought up some points already that, that I guess at this point I've taken as kind of a standard, so it doesn't affect my criticism as much. For instance, Jeff mentioned about how Henry Cavill was the villain in was it Fallout? But they showed their hand with him 15 minutes into that, 20 minutes into the movie. The minute he hands the phone to his boss and it's different, you're like, oh, he's the bad guy. Throughout the entire film, I never once suspected that he wasn't the bad guy. It wasn't really a surprise, but they tell it early. So, and as far as the span between movies, we get that with the comic book movies all the time. I don't necessarily need to fill in the blanks for that anymore, because you get this span now to where, oh, here we are. It's just like, I mean, especially between like Infinity War and Endgame, which I still love Infinity more than Endgame. There was a span of time in there, and you're like, well, what have these folks been up to? And you barely get any explanation before they just move on to, yeah, this is the way things are. So I guess some of the criticisms, which you guys make valid points, for me personally, I don't see them anymore, because I'm seeing this standard like in that article I mentioned, where everything's on the nose now. So I'm, as far as these wide release films go, I'm like, well, was I entertained? Okay. How does it rate to the other ones? This one, I enjoyed Dead Reckoning more than this one by a bit, but I was entertained. But, there is this standard now of being on the nose. I mean, look at the trailers. You guys mentioned trailers. Megan 2.0, I suspect, has pretty much spoiled the entire movie. And there's another one that is just egregious. Heads of State, the Idris Elba John Cena movie, that if you haven't seen the trailer yet for, try to avoid. Yeah, it's an action buddy comedy where Cena and Idris Elba, I think they're playing one incoming and outgoing presidential candidates. I'm not sure. I didn't look up the summary. All I know is that you watch the film, as far as action and everything goes. Oh, look, they're in peril. And then later on the trailer, no, they're not. They're getting weapon. And you're like, what? The trailer from, was it 15, 20 years ago, that Kevin Costner movie, The Guardian, they literally during the trailer,
The Bodyguard?
The Guardian, where he was a Coast Guard.
Yeah.
Where he was in the Coast Guard. They literally showed like harrowing scenes of, will he make it? Don't he make it? And then they cut to a funeral scene with the picture of the guy. Then they hint at a love possible interest between two characters, and they literally show a wedding scene later on in the trailer. And this is all within like the 3-minute trailer. Hollywood doesn't feel the audience can handle surprises anymore, bar none. Major surprises or plot, they feel the need. For me, I'm old school. Give me one teaser trailer, and teaser trailer, I mean less than a minute and a half. Teaser trailer, literally. And one story trailer, maybe a month or two before the film. 2 trailers. That's
especially when you have a built-in audience.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look at Marvel. Look at how much marketing, and especially like Brave New World, how many trailers and marketing. And you're like, it's a freaking Marvel film. People, you're saying, I've got a new Marvel film. It's got the new Captain America.
People are going nuts.
People went nuts before they ever saw a trailer. You don't need to do much. You've got your established audience. Mission Impossible, you're on your 6th or 7th film. You've got a following. You're not going to pull in new viewers into a number 7 film of the franchise. You're just not going to. So do something that's going to have some surprises, and you don't need to reveal much, because you're not going to pull in a new audience for part 7.
Well, but you are. I mean, and you have to, because the franchise is 30 years old, right? So they are banking on catching, teenagers, people in their 20s, 30s on up, from people who are new to the franchise to the ones who are, from the beginning with De Palma. And that's the whole thing about like bingeable, you can look on, I think the Roku channel has all of these movies, right? It's like, hey, watch the entire collection. So they're banking on people doing that. But I take your point, Mark. I think the problem is Tom Cruise was pissed that when Dead Reckoning came out a couple years ago, he had 1 week between that movie and Barbenheimer. And I understand, because Barbenheimer stole the entire rest of the year, or at least the summer. But what he should have done, him and McQuarrie, and they couldn't have seen this coming when they were writing the script however many years ago, is to say, we need to make this movie unmissable. We have to foresee there being a Barbenheimer and having people make the choice to say, maybe I'll see that next weekend. I have to see the new Mission Impossible. And there doesn't have that grab factor that was in the original movies. And as you get to movies like 7 or 8, I mean, the same thing with Fast and the Furious. Like, we're going to space. That is enough of a ridiculous hook that you're going to get some people in there. Even if it's literally only like the car goes up into like low orbit. Like, I think it passed Blue Origin on the way down. But with these films, I think you just need to hang it up or treat it like it is the first, and you're really trying to.
But people. It's interesting. One of the things, and I'm not pushing back on you, Mark, because you and I usually agree on most everything. But one of the things that you mentioned that I think is actually a slightly nuanced point, though I don't know if you necessarily meant it as that, but the Henry Cavill character in Fallout, yes, he does make that call. But we have been sort of, I don't know what you want to call, taught by the Mission Impossible franchise to not believe everything you see. And there still are twists. For example, in that movie, at first you think Angela Bassett is maybe bad because she's very much against the IMF, and the previous sort of foil from the film before it has now come over to work for the IMF, and that's the Alec Baldwin character. We're not sure where Ilse is on that one, because she's going after Hunt's team and trying to play her own game so she can get back in good graces with MI6. So, we're not quite sure where her loyalties are on that. So those kind of things keep you guessing a little bit. Here, you don't really have anything like that. Maybe the people in the war room, but, are they going to threaten or kill the president? That shouldn't be our concern during a Mission Impossible movie. It should be the people in the field. And we know where Dunlow stands. We know where the villains stand. There's not that sort of is he or isn't he kind of factor, which almost all the others had. Jean Reno, is he a good guy or a bad guy in the first one? You think he's a good guy? Nope. The very end, we find out he's not. There's nothing like that here. Well, if you haven't seen in 30 years, I'm not going to say anything, especially with that crawl at the bottom.
Hey, Jeff, sorry.
Yes, sure.
I'd like to ask you to put a pin in that just for a second, because we're about to lose a member of our team. Mr. Fowley needs to bounce in a couple of minutes. So I just want to give you a chance, David. Do you have any final thoughts on this new one?
They said the final reckoning at least 2 times in the movie. So that's always good to remind viewers what
in case you missed the title.
Yep, gotta include that. Just once, I would like to see somebody say, "You know what? I choose not to accept this," and then end credits or something.
Or they get shot in the head.
Yeah. Well, look, the James Bond Daniel Craig movies had at least the cojones to kill him off.
Yeah.
And even when my wife, when I saw this, she's like, why couldn't Tom Cruise die in this movie? Because Tom Cruise won't allow himself to die in movies.
That's right.
There you go. Anyways.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Yes. Have a good night. Just don't blow up the live stream as you leave on your way out the door.
See, and that's the problem. These films, and we've had this problem, and we've had that discussion for quite some time, is that, and Ian, this goes back to what we were we've talked about a number of times in pre-shows, in that film studios now are making films as IPs, not one-offs. They're afraid to take chances. In all honesty, I would have loved in Top Gun if they would have had the cojones to have Maverick get killed in the background off screen instead of getting getting the Rambo 3 moment with him and facing a helicopter. Because think about the buzz and how you would get people to wonder, but being the cojones, because in like Maverick, his plane goes down in the background. He gets hit with a missile and it explodes. And I'm like, oh man, did they just unceremoniously kill Maverick in order to save, Goose's son? I'm like, that's pretty bold. And nope, there's parachute. And it's the same thing here. They could have killed, and it makes me think they were reshoots. I'm guessing they killed Simon Pegg's character and they did a reshoot to bring him back at the end because it didn't sit. Because if you look at the way they set everything up with his character down to him being shot but not admitting it to Ethan, so Ethan goes and after the bad guys, and then he's sitting there and he's got the tube in his chest and they sit there and he literally kind of just goes, I swear they planned on him dying as well. And it makes me wonder if, you say Tom Cruise didn't die. Okay, don't have him die. Have him walk off into wherever they are, where the South African will just have him walk away. Have him get a mission tape or whatever, and have him just walk away. Because the way this movie ends, I will fully admit, I would have enjoyed it more had it not ended the way it did. Because they ended by giving him, and my son even said this, because my son really enjoyed this one. He and I enjoyed this one quite a bit. We actually agreed on it for the most part. They give him the super drive with the AI in it in a case. And I'm sitting here going, why wouldn't they smash it right there? I'm an IT guy in the daytime. There's many ways they could have taken that once they trapped the vicious, evil, world-dominating, I want to kill the humans and chaos into that drive. Smash it. She should have picked it up and smashed it on the ground immediately, or gone and thrown it in a volcano. But they put it in a case to give it to Tom Cruise in the 1,000-yard stairs, and we get the nod montage that, Lord of the Rings is going, yeah, you can wrap it up at any time, really. And that was the problem I had with the ending of this. I was hoping for a better ending than what we got, but the studio was not brave enough to say, we're going to hand this to the other crew and leave Tom Cruise's character like retiring.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, like if he had, they'd had that moment, and even if there's like a post-credit scene or something where he gets another tape and his retirement is basically he goes and hands it to Haley Atwell or to Simon Pegg or to some new, fresh young spy that they introduced in the last couple of movies to carry the franchise on. Something like that. He can't ignore the tape because that's a signal that the world's in danger, right? But he can at least give it to someone to take care of it for him.
How about this? He gets his tape of this tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds after they give him the mission. He takes the drive that has the AI on it, puts it on top of the device that's going to self-destruct, and it self-destructs and destroys the AI, and he just walks out of the room and closes the door. Sure, that might upset some people, but talk about a ballsy move where you still left it open for a mission impossible if you wanted to continue with someone else, but you bookend it.
Or you just give the thing to the AI to solve.
Right.
I don't know if AI holds a grudge if you've locked the genie into the lamp for eternity. But yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think this again sort of hits at a large theme that we've talked about for many shows on all three of your programs. Gosh, I'm the only person here who doesn't have a program. I feel so
get on that, Jeff.
Damn it, Jesus. And that is that I think to your talk about the IP, it's not just IP, it's franchise. It's the and in social media, and we've known this since the advent of Facebook, that it's really all about keeping the conversation going. Marketing is done that way. It's all about keeping the customers coming back, whether loyalty programs. Oh, I got to see what happens next. What are they going to put on this post on Instagram today? I'm engaged, and keep it ongoing. But I would argue that both social media and movies have sort of been televisionized, and that is always an ongoing story. We can never end anything. Big Little Lies was a terrific miniseries. It ended, but it was so popular, we have to bring it back, and the second one was not good. Now they're talking about bringing it back again. Why? Because they have nothing more to come up with, because they don't want to come up with a creative idea that takes new thinking, starting over from scratch, et cetera, et cetera. Here, they just... again, I think they're navel gazing on certain levels that aren't terrible in the sense of like, oh, that's a terrible movie. But the BBC called this the feel bad movie of the summer. Why on God's green earth would they want this to be so dark and so gloomy? And I think it's, well, this is the last for time Tom Cruise is going to do this, and everything has to be treated with seriousness, including a black and white photo of him on the poster. It's like, no, this is Mission Impossible. The franchise is bigger than Tom Cruise, and it should be fun. And it should have some more spirit to it. But they treat it like we're at a funeral. And it's like, well, nobody dies except for the Luther character. And he was already a goner, apparently, because somehow he had cancer. But it keeps going on, and we can't ever have an ending where Tom Cruise dies. We can't ever. I agree with you about Maverick. What would have really been ballsy is if he had won the mission for them, but he didn't beat that thing that they said he couldn't. But nope, he's got to be omnipotent. He's got to be God. He's got to be better than anybody else out there. No, show us he's a human being. I mean, I think that would have made this have some real weight to it. And those people, it's. And then if you want to start over the franchise in 2 or 3 years, start it with a completely new team.
You can.
I mean, they could do it with Simon Pegg still as, the continuity as a supporting humorous character, or whomever else. But, when they bring Henry Czerny back for 2 films and they give him nothing to do in this one, they give Nick Offerman better lines than Henry Czerny's got, it's asinine. Because to your point earlier, Ian, about when Kittredge is sitting there, well, yeah, so it looks like you've been stealing money. And he's just saying this like he's just slowly grinding that knife in Ethan's back after watching all of his crew die. Where there's nothing like that. They didn't give Henry Czerny anything like that to do here or in the last one. What are you people doing? You don't even know how good Kittredge was as a foil. And I would also argue that in the first one, we didn't know whether he was good or bad until the very end when he says, "Good morning, Mr. Phelps." Now he's on the good guys team. We didn't know that for sure, because you can't be sure of anything in the Mission Impossible world.
I'm sorry. Oh, that was a big problem I had with the Kittredge role that I actually pointed out in my review, is that, in Mission Impossible, he was a threat because all of Ethan's team dies, and he basically says, well, we're going to take you in,
you're the only one who survived.
Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, how's he going to get out of this? And then the fish tank thing happens. Here, it's like he's a punchline. Like in Dead Reckoning, there's that whole scene. I think like Kittredge is trying to threaten Ethan, and then, or they're talking about they're going to do something to him, and then the gas goes off. Yeah, the gas comes in, and then he takes the mask off, and he's like, it was really me. And Kittredge is like, oh, jeez, wah, wah, wah. And then that like happens to him again in this film about like 2 times, and I'm just going, why are they using this character if like he was already used to like the way he was supposed to be used in the script with the first one? It's not very smart screenwriting. It's more like, well, the fans like this character, let's put him back in, but he doesn't really contribute anything.
Which is hilarious, because 30 years ago, and I can't believe this series has gone 30 years. I didn't realize until my son wanted to watch from the beginning. We watched from the beginning. I'm like, holy shit, wait, it's back in the 90s. Think about how this series started with one of the ballsiest moves you can do for a series that is based off of your heroes, in that you made your main hero, which is why Peter Graves did not come to reprise his role, why they had to get what's his name to
John
play
Voight.
John Voight to play the role because Graves was like, no, I'm not doing that, because they made the hero from the TV series the bad guy in this. And I'm like sitting here going, that's a ballsy move. Sure, you're going to probably piss off fans, but talk about your water cooler talking point when people go and they're like, holy crap, did you see what they did? They took the Peter Graves hero character and he ended up being corrupt. It's the same reason why I, to this day, will die on the hill. And I know people, internet can flame me till the day I die. Last Jedi, why I enjoyed Last Jedi was because the hero from the first series took a turn you may not expect to see your hero, yet he had some justification in his disdain for everything. And what happened, they did something at least different and unexpected. Does it always work? No. Is it always a good choice? Maybe not always, but it's something different. It makes it interesting. You're like, okay, I did not see this coming. Where are you going to go with this? But in the end, in any of these, whether you're comic book films, whether it's this, it gets watered down to where, well, we can't do that because we may need this person for such and such, or we can't do that because look at the fallout from, as you said, Jeff, the social media.
Well, I mean, I point well taken, Mark. But I think getting back to something you had said earlier, I mean, you're going to get butts in seats, whether they're new fans or old fans.
Exactly.
So you do have that latitude to do something different. I think one of the, if I had to guess, one of the reasons that these movies aren't doing so well in their final stages is there's nothing daring. It's like, well, yeah, it might be kind of cool to see it on the big screen, but it's 3 hours. I got to wait 2.5 hours to see the plain thing. It'll be on, on demand in a month and a half. Why not? I'm going to go see the freaking Lilo and Stitch remake.
Well, that's shorter too. Your runtime kills you with this movie. But
Ian, can I just share one thing too? And I don't want to keep coming in with these kind of things.
No.
But again, to your point, Mark, it's in the screenwriting. Because, for example, like when you say, okay, we can't kill off this person, we're not going to do. Okay, if that's the case, and that's the studio instruction or, the common sense of it all, right? What are you going to do then to make it different? For example, so Ethan Hunt is hanging off of the biplane, and of course it's convenient that they have two. But there's some little bits that are great, like you said, Ian, where he gets into the passenger seat and realizes he's got to do more work, even though it's just enough to get into that. But like again, I don't want to keep harping on Fallout, but in Fallout, he climbs up that rope to get into the helicopter, takes care of the other guy, but then he's losing fuel and losing control or like that. So what does he do? Because he still has to get that detonator. Well, here's the ingenious part of that. He rams the other helicopter. I may kill myself in this moment and I may kill him, but at least the detonator is broken. So there's the gamble and there's the shock and surprise.
Right.
And great. Where is that in this? I mean, even like with the underwater sequence, when Reverend Scott is going to go and find the way out for them in the Poseidon Adventure, the door falls on him. And then Shelley Winters has to go in, lift the door, and save him. You need those parts in the writing. And there's very little of that here. There's very little of those things where, oh my God, this is so exciting. What's he going to do now? And somehow he does it, but at least creates more of an obstacle. When Cruz is hanging on the plane and it's taking off, he's like, Benji, which door of it? That's the crux of it. Which door is it? Because even if he's hanging on to there, and he's probably not going to be hanging on more than 2 minutes more once they get up to 30,000 feet, where's the door that he's supposed to get into? That's still a problem. Where are those moments in this? They didn't write those into this script as much, and you feel it.
Yeah, I think we were talking about Kittredge and his role in the beginning in the first Mission Impossible, and you're not sure what side he's on, but he's got it. Let's just assume that he was on the side of the angels all along. I mean, he's a head government spook, so he's got his hands dirty, but he has to deal with this agent whose team has been completely wiped out, very suspicious circumstances. He doesn't know if he's a rogue agent working within the agency to do, terrible things.
Right.
Wouldn't it be interesting and you'd have to go back and seed this in the last few Mission Impossible movies. What if you had, talking about Maverick, what if you had a Glenn Powell who was like the young upstart guy on the team who becomes the next Ethan Hunt
Right.
type character. He's the
Yep.
unpredictable guy. You're not sure if you can trust him, but he's really good at his job. But then Tom
Yeah.
Cruise has to assume the Kittredge role. Like, I
Hmm.
don't know if I can trust this guy. He
Mhm.
doesn't know if he can trust me because maybe the things that he's read in my bio, my CV of like blowing up buildings all over the world and things like that. But yeah, just if you're going to pass the torch, do something. Even you don't even have to pass the torch, but it would be a great way to set up a franchise. I think I want to wind down a bit here and go through the, my gosh, myriad comments we have. So indulge me and indulge our loyal and faithful and lovely viewers. We have Sajiwa, who jumped in here like 2 hours before we went on to get waiting behind that velvet rope. Busy night, but I'll share a few thoughts. I certainly learned what not to do in my Save the World movie by watching this ridiculous movie. Thanks, Tom Cruise and buddy. The best way to shut down an AI web threat is to shut down the entire internet and all computers. Go
Mhm.
back to the life of the 1950s or so, doable when faced with a world-ending emergency.
Mhm.
That's why I said I'd be all for that, but I'd be in the caves the first couple of years. Dude would have died underwater. Is he Batman plus Aquaman? U.S. government has military teams all over the world. The government could have moved teams over to various locations to help Ethan Hunt instead of hanging out in a room and talking nonsense. If late period Godard made an action movie, it might look like the new Mission Impossible movie, a non-real internet-only villain, stock shots of nuclear missiles to add tension. An essay on the futility of control, Gabriel trying to control the entity from the outside world. It's GTL. What am I missing here? What is GTL? It's probably something really obvious I'm missing. Oh, goodbye to language. Okay.
Oh.
The Mission Impossible, the final reckoning.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah, man. Late period Godard.
I love that. I love that screenshot of David Witt, by the way, or Wilt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. David Wilt does chime in. I think that what makes the Mission Impossible movie so very popular is the original 96 movie came out to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the original television. And watching that movie, it doesn't feel like action and adventure movie. It feels like a Hitchcockian thriller.
Yes,
Yes.
much
A
so.
lot of
Yeah,
that's
it
on
is,
De Palma. Yeah.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's
Palma's noir flair in that one.
Yeah, yeah.
I
That's why I always like the first one more than the others. It was more
and
of
it
a
has that
thinker
look
than it-
too,
yeah.
that clean,
Mhm.
overly shiny quality, like which work because he's like, let's do a pristine train car, let's do a pristine CIA vault, that kind of stuff.
I didn't put that together till just now that 96 back to what 66 was the show. So wow, the original show is 60 years old almost. Wow.
It's a great show too.
Well, in the original movie, Kittredge was an antagonist character. Yes, not a villain, but an antagonist. Very good distinction there, David.
Yeah.
The famous Mission Impossible line, "This message will self-destruct," was parried a lot of times. If you guys ever watched that series, Inspector Gadget,
Oh,
the
yeah.
message that Gadget
I
would
love
always go
Inspector
kaboom.
Gadget.
Oh, yes.
Gadget.
That.
Played by a gentleman who would parody James Bond.
Don Adams.
Yep.
Get smart.
Missed it by that much.
That
He
much.
also played Tennessee Tuxedo.
Mhm.
Tennessee Tuxedo. Why do I know
Yes.
that name?
That was a cartoon show with Penguin and a big walrus named Chumley, and they'd always go see Mr. Whoopi to find out some things.
I remember
Yep, I
Chumley
remember
more than
that.
anyone
Yep.
else. That's weird. Watching the original movie, you realize Ethan Hunt is not yet the main protagonist. He is just a supporting character.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. Did you guys know that in the 1980s there was a Mission Impossible revival in the 80s? Was that on
Yes.
TV?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
In syndication.
Yeah.
Was there anybody of note in it?
Peter Graves
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was a
and
yeah.
Greg Morris returned too.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yep.
All right. The 93 movie The Fugitive also came out to celebrate its 30th anniversary of a very popular TV series. Yep. Oh, that was good. Watching the opening credits of these movies, you realize how they spoil the movie, which is exactly how the original series was done. Yes. Oh, and Sajir was joining the show at the end. The entire movie looked like the 80s or 90s or so, not a modern look. But yeah, if you're not going into realism, there are some fun moments in the movie. Part 1 was better, I think. 95% critics rating on RT. And closing it out, this new movie needed a sense of humor. Like, I got to fight another goon. I'm on the clock, man. I got to go save the world. Yeah. The shirtless Tom Cruise knife fight was kind of interesting. I saw that in the trailer. I didn't know what was going on, and in the context of the movie, I still don't. I think there was a treadmill or something. Jeff, this was a couple of weeks ago, and I was groggy. Is that right?
Yeah,
Am I
that's
remembering
exactly
it?
right. You were remembering that one well.
Though that one at least was entertaining in the fact of they intercut it with the fight that was going on in the island with the soldiers as they were trying to do the code for that. I enjoyed that sequence actually, because you kind of got a little bit Hunt for Red October, but you had Ethan waiting, didn't know his crew. He's away from his crew. His crew was on their own doing their thing, and they're fighting Russians on this island. And you get the code, and then they do the gimmick of, oh, wait, they gave the code, but you're on the other side of the world. And then they're like, no, wait, he gave it in reverse because he figured the Russians would be listening. You know, I liked at least that whole sequence because that felt like you had the team doing something, you had something happening with Ethan Hunt as well, and you also had like a major plot thing that could have been, I know it wasn't, but it still was just a nice little, like, you're on the wrong side of the world. I'm like, oh, did they really go there? And then you find out they didn't. Like, oh, okay. But then they at least explained it, why the coordinates were reversed. And then you're just like, that guy was smart. And that, at least that little sequence section in there keeps you interested. Everybody's doing something and gets a chance to kind of shine. And you get kind of a little fun plot element in there that makes you question just for a second, wait, did they actually go to the wrong side of the world for it?
I get, yeah. I mean, I had forgotten almost completely about that sequence. And I think that's one of the casualties of this runtime.
Oh,
is
yeah,
there's
absolutely.
so much stuff, so much episodic little vignettes of action and talking and more talking and kind of action going on, that if you'd cut out like 6 sequences to preserve that one, I think it would have been much better. But the further this movie went along, the more just exhausted I got, because I saw that this movie is going to end in a particular way, and now it's an endurance test rather than a nail biter. Until I got to the biplane, I was like, this is awesome, mostly because I know it's like going to church. You know, by the time you get to communion, you know, you got like one song and a prayer, and then you get to walk out.
Can I say one other just thing too that's an important distinction? And I think, again, how people get so close to stuff, they don't have the objectivity more, which you guys have, and the comments clearly illustrate as well. In the original series, when they did the little snippets of the action to come during the credits and the theme music, it usually was the part right before the action, or you didn't have a context of what was going on. It would be like a dun or like a dun like that, and you didn't know exactly what was going on. In the original Mission Impossible movie, they did something very clever. They only showed the IMF team that got killed. So you thought Kristen Scott Thomas and Emilio Estevez, those guys were going to be the people in the movie. They never showed Jean Reno. They never showed Ving Rhames. They never showed anything that involved or suggested they were going to show up in the movie. In fact, I think if I remember correctly, the IMDb credits were honoring it too by putting those major people up front, and they weren't revealed until after the movie opened. Here, with each passing movie, they give away a little bit more of all the goodies. And again, to your article that you sent around, Mark, it's a little too on the nose. It's showing like I remember even in Fallout, as much as I like that movie, they show the scene where during the motorcycle chase, Cruise flips over on the motorcycle towards the camera. Great shot. Why show it there? Just show it in the show. You can show them on the motorcycle 100 times if you want in that kind of bit, but don't show that best part. They didn't do that in the show, and in the movie, they went out of their way to misdirect us there. And I think that's a key significant difference as this franchise has moved on. That they keep showing us more of the good bits because audiences need to see them before they see them.
Yeah, I think the Dead Reckoning, as we brought up with the train sequence, that was one of the last times I was surprised by anything in a major blockbuster movie, because I had no idea it was coming.
Yeah, that's right.
I think a great misdirect for this would have been, have, instead of the biplane on the poster, have the submarine, because we all know, based on Dead Reckoning, you've got to get to that submarine.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It's going to be this big underwater espionage adventure, but then all of a sudden, like, wait a second, we're up in the sky where these canyons and death-defying stuff. A real surprise for people.
Mhm.
Last thing I'll say is, Mark, I think if they'd killed off Tom Cruise in Top Gun Maverick, that would have been amazing. And you would have gotten a lot more people into the theater for the subsequent viewings, because they would not have believed it because of Tom Cruise's thing. Like, no, he doesn't die. Like, wait, no, you're lying to me. He's fine. No, wait, what? So anyway, speaking of killing things off, I'm going to end this live stream.
No, it was just a William Shatner. It's the William Shatner syndrome. Think about Trek 6 and how it originally was supposed to end, and how Shatner did not like that. Did you ever hear the story of that real quick? Real quick. End of Star Trek 6, where Shatner's supposed to save the ship. He gets shot in the back, boom, dead. On that ladder, instantly, they shoot him in the back, dead. He dies. They were talking to the script writers, and as they were writing the script, they're like, and Captain Kirk takes a shot in the back. They still save, but Kirk dies unceremoniously by just getting shot in the back.
Is this after they save the United Nations meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
Or I mean, in Generations, not Star Trek 6. Sorry, Generations.
Okay.
My apologies. My
Okay.
apologies. Generations. I blended the two. It's been a while since I watched with both. End of Generations. I'm sorry. End of Generations. He was supposed to just get shot in the back and die. They were still going to save, have some things happen, but it wasn't supposed to be him. He was going to get unceremoniously after he hits the button.
He shouldn't have been in Generations at all.
And he shouldn't have been in Generations.
They ended it in 5 very well.
They spent
and
$4
then they bring
million.
him back.
They spent $4 million so Shatner could have his epic Kirk going out saving the whole planet. $4 million.
I will say I liked that he was in Generations, but in that opening, because I think when he goes down there to try and take care of things, if you did a little bit of tweaking here and there at that sequence to give him to let people know that he's not going to be back for the rest of the movie. It's going to be about something else and a real passing of the torch. But I like that sequence, but yeah, the rest of that, yikes. All right. So a little bit of housekeeping and I'll get everyone out of here. First, I should have done this at the top of the show, but I want to wish a very, very happy birthday to Annie Banks, who could not be here with us tonight. But it's her birthday, so everyone give her a big old shout out and also a congratulations, because she was recently announced. I think she found this out like on her birthday because she posted about it at midnight. She is the new news and TV editor for Comic Book Resources. That's CBR.com. So go check that out and see the fine work that she is stewarding over there. Also, as far as what's coming up here on Kicking the Seat, we have a lot. So this Friday, we're going to be doing another live stream, but with filmmaker Jeremy Eden in support of his Indiegogo campaign for a film that he's putting together called Hello Apocalypse, which is a rockumentary sci-fi horror movie, which I've read the script, and it's very fun. Also, Sunday, we're going to be doing another Class of 95 installment with Kevin Smith's Mallrats. And next Wednesday, we're going to be back here talking about the Philippou brothers' latest horror film, Bring Her Back. Is it a worthy follow-up to Talk to Me? Well, you're just going to have to join us back here and find out. Jeff?
I'm sorry, something was in my eye.
I was going to say, don't tip your hand. Next Wednesday, 8 o'clock Central. So I'm going to have information for all those live streams and all of Earth's Mightiest critics here, those who are with us in spirit and also with us here on the show. Their information is down below, so please support them. Once again, I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck of Special Mark Productions, Jeff York of The Establishing Shot, Mike Crowley of YPA Reviews, and he had to leave, oh my gosh, 30 minutes ago, just about, David Fowley of Keeping It Real. If you like this live stream, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications, all that business. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much. Take care. And Mission Impossible, really? 8 movies? Is this 8 or is this 7? I don't know.
This is
okay.
7,
Unlucky 7 in this case. So do it that way you will. I'm out of here.